In Chapter 1, we'll be looking closely at the European realm. So like we'll do for all of the realms this semester, we'll be looking at the realm as a whole first, and then we'll be looking more closely at the regions of the realm. How many countries can you name from the European realm? Figure 1a gives you an idea of the territorial and political boundaries of the European realm. We'll be looking at countries like Spain, Germany, France, and Italy, as well as some you might not be familiar with, like Croatia and Latvia. The European realm consists of slightly less than 600 million people and 40 countries. But you'll realize from looking at a map of the world that the area is fairly small. The boundaries of what we consider to be Europe have shifted over time, and are still shifting today as Europe re-examines the role of the European Union and the relationship of Russia to the rest of the world. For our intents and purposes, Europe's western boundaries include the Atlantic, Arctic, and Mediterranean, and the eastern boundary consists of Russia. In Europe, we're looking at a varied climate and a number of natural environments. We can identify 4 units of physical landscape: the central uplands, the southern alpine mountains, the western uplands, and the northern European lowland. You can see these in Figure 1a3. Europe has historically benefited from rivers and seas which serve as its eastern boundaries to navigate through the realm and beyond. The history of inhabitants of Europe can be traced to the Mediterranean, with the great civilizations of ancient Greece and imperial Rome. The ancient Greek world was divided into city-states and thrived culturally before being overtaken by Roman conquest. The Roman Empire eventually took up a huge majority of the realm, bringing different peoples under a vast rule before collapsing in the 5th century AD. After enduring the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, the Renaissance was born in Italy and spread throughout Europe, leading eventually to the picture of modern Europe that we saw in Figure 1a3. Events such as the Industrial Revolution and the colonization that occurred under the British Empire would have an enormous effect on the course of the realm. Let's check out a map of population density in the European realm. Remember to refer to the scale at the top of the map. I think one of the most fascinating maps in this chapter is Figure 1a7, which shows the languages of Europe broken down in their larger branches. It shows how varied the realm is in terms of the number of different language people speak. Some facts that I think are particularly notable. About 3 out of 4 Europeans live in towns and cities, so we can think of Europe as a highly urbanized realm. Europe's population is shrinking. It's a function of negative population growth, which you can read about on page 53. Immigration is partially offsetting the population deficit, but opinion about immigration is mixed in different regions, which has become very obvious with the recent decision of the UK to leave the European Union, which was driven by concerns about immigration. Our textbook goes into detail about the unification of Europe, which happened after World War II destroyed the economies of many countries in the realm. There were economic as well as political reasons for driving European unification, one political reason being the rise of the Soviet Union and the perceived need to defeat communism before it spread throughout the globe. Figure 1a9 details the history of European unification, but we should understand that this particular map might need some serious revising in the next few years. Our text goes into detail about what the European Union is, and I think there's a really good pro and con piece on page 59 that I think is worth looking at. Let's move on to talk now about the European regions. We're dealing with 5 regions when we look at Europe: the mainland core, the British Isles, the discontinuous south, the discontinuous north, and the eastern periphery. Europe is considered regionally complex because its map is constantly changing. New nations are forming and being recognized, and we're also going to be concerned with what we call microstates, tiny separate entities on the map that don't have the attributes of complete states, like Monaco. In the mainland core, we've got 8 states. Remember, we think of these as countries, but in geography, we're referring to them as states. We have Germany, France, the Benelux states. Benelux is just the first syllables of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The Alpine states of Switzerland, Austria, and the Czech Republic. Check out figure 1b2 to see these on the map. I think the table that shows the major cities of the realm is neat because it breaks them down by population. Paris in 2012 had a population of 10.8 million, whereas Amsterdam had a population of 1.1 million. The next region is the British Isles, 2 islands which include the subregions of the United Kingdom, consisting of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland, which you'll need to remember is separate from the UK. If we're looking at the land area of the UK, it's about the size of the state of Oregon. The Republic of Ireland won independence in 1921. And these are the 4 subregions of the UK. Third, we have the discontinuous South, and here we have Italy. Not yet. North Italy is considered part of the European core, while South Italy, Sicily, and Sardinia are the periphery. Italy is the most populous of the southern states, and we can see from figure 1b8 that the northern region has a higher GDP than the south. Next we have Spain, Portugal, and the archipelago of Malta, and an archipelago is a cluster of islands. Our text tells us that Spain's economic growth has been in a bit of a decline, as is Portugal's. Malta's 3 inhabited islands are a popular tourist destination. Moving on, we look at Greece and the island of Cyprus. The economy of Greece has been incredibly tumultuous in the last 30 years, with a period of stagnation followed by economic progress, followed by a major debt crisis. And then we have the Balkans. The Balkans has evolved significantly in the last century, once communist Yugoslavia dissolved. Check out figure 1b11 to see the division of the Balkans, and pay special attention to the cultural divisions, because I think those are really interesting. Next, we're looking at the discontinuous North, which includes Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Iceland. The countries in this region share similar cultures and shared histories. Of these countries, Sweden has the most moderate climate. Denmark, although it's very small, has the second largest population. The eastern periphery includes Slovenia, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Belarus, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Moldova, and Turkey. Each one of these countries, although in the same region, is very different. I think figure 1b4 is really quite interesting since it shows the wide variety of ethnic backgrounds in the eastern periphery. Now that we've taken a mini tour around the European realm, I really want you to dive into the text. Find out what you think is interesting about each region, decide where you'd like to go visit someday, and learn about the region's history and its projected future.